Hi everyone, welcome to your week 5 video. So this week I'll be working with some additional Microsoft and Google productivity tools of your choice. So here's your week 5 checklist. As you'll notice, there's no readings or really content related videos this week besides this one, but the discussion board has returned. So let's take a look at that first. Hopefully you made a mental note of some of the differences you saw between the Microsoft and Google tools, because that's what this week's discussion board is all about. So you're going to do a SWOT analysis, or an analysis of the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats of both the Microsoft and Google productivity tools. So when you're considering the strengths, I really want you to consider, what each set of tools you worked with did well. So you might say things like Word did this well, or Google Slides did this well. Right? So it doesn't have to be just the whole set. It can be some of the individual tools that you used. And then when you're considering the weaknesses, consider what each set of tools you worked with really needs to improve. And again, this is all your opinion. When you're considering the opportunities, you want to consider how you might use each set of the tools in the future. And then when you're considering the threats, consider what might inhibiting you from using each set of those tools in the future. So you're more than welcome to just copy and paste the table that I have in the discussion board instructions to complete your analysis. And additionally, please feel free to use bullet points in the table, or however you decide to organize it. So like each week that we have a discussion, your original post is due by Wednesday and your responses are due by Sunday. Just remember that actively engaging means that you've read the majority of the posts from your peers and you've responded to about 1/4 of them, which should be at least 4. Okay, so now let's look at MTA number 4, Productivity Tool Extras. As always, MTAs are due on Sundays at 11:59 p.m., which means MTA 4 is due Sunday, February 17th at 11:59 p.m. So for MTA number 4, you're going to choose one additional Microsoft and one additional Google productivity tool activity that you want to complete. So it's a total of 2 activities. There'll be one from the left side and then one from the right side. So one from the Google or the Microsoft side and one from the Google side. So each option box contains the links out to the assignment instructions, examples, and overviews and tutorials. And we'll take a look at that here in just a second. Just remember that when you're working with your chosen Google tool, you can either use your personal Gmail account or your Orange Mail account to complete the assignments. If you're using Orange Mail, there might be that additional sharing instruction, which I imagine you're used to by now if you had to do it last week. But when working with your Microsoft tool, you'll want to sign in with your Cowboy Mail. Okay, so like last week, I highly suggest that you create a document, whether it's a Microsoft document or a Google document, that you can access easily to house the 2 links to your completed work. So instructions for getting shareable links are provided for each activity. Hopefully you're getting more familiar with the process after last week. So the text in the body of your document will correspond with the 2 tools that you choose, and each part should be hyperlinked using the links that you gathered from your completed work. So I don't want to see any ugly full-length links. I want them to be nice and hyperlinked like you see here in this example document. So additionally, you should use the naming conventions last name _MTA 4. Okay, so let's look at your Microsoft options first. You can either create a Sway presentation or a OneNote notebook for 2 of your classes this semester. So I'm going to dig into Sway first, but I'm going to pop out into a PDF version so I can click on some of these links. Okay, so as you can see on the Sway card here, it indicates that you're going to use Sway to create and share an interactive presentation about a topic of interest to you, or a personal story / memory. So if you click on the detailed assignment instructions, it's going to take you to the instructions for the assignment. So let's just do that now. So basically you are going to create a presentation that has at least 7 sections of content and uses specific Sway tools. So the tutorial, which is linked right up here, but it's also in that card version, it discusses each of the sway tools, and additionally you can check out the examples to see the 3 different types of sway layouts. So I'm just going to show you them really quickly. This is the vertical one. This one, it scrolls up and down. So there are different types of layouts that you can have. So that's one. There's a horizontal one, and as you can imagine, this one scrolls, left and right. And then the last one is just the slide version, and it's kind of just like a slideshow that you would make, in PowerPoint or Google Slides or something like that. So if it wants to take us there, but basically each one is a new slide. So you click over here into so kind of looks like that. So just make sure that when you're done, you're grabbing a shareable link to your sway, and it gives you the instructions here. This one is pretty similar to kind of like all the Google stuff that you obtain links for, even though it's a Microsoft tool. So just use the instructions to grab your link, and again, I'm going to encourage you to test your link in that incognito window in Google Chrome just to make sure that it works. Okay, so moving on, we'll go to the other Microsoft tool, which is OneNote. So as you can see here, the card indicates that you'll use OneNote to create a notebook for 2 of your classes for the semester. If you have the OneNote application on your computer, you can work on that. I have it, and both versions work fine. But if you don't have that version, you can use OneNote online by following the instructions to sign into OneDrive. So that's in the assignment instructions, and you're going to need your Oki account to log in. So creating a notebook is pretty simple, but you can definitely use the tutorial that I have linked if you need it. Additionally, I've created an example for you to use. Let me just click on that down here. You'll need to sign in, I believe, with your OSU email. If you try to and it doesn't work, just let me know immediately. That's the first time I've tried to share a link to a notebook in the way that I did. So just let me know if you're one of the first people watching this and you try and it doesn't work. Okay, so basically, all of the instructions are here of the requirements that you have to do. You have to have, 4 different sections, a variety of pages, or sorry, 2 sections. One section will be for each class, and then pages, at least 4 pages for each section. So just follow the instructions. I think it's pretty intuitive, but the sharing instructions for OneNote are a little different. So I'm going to go over it just in the online version that I have here. But if you're using the application, the instructions are at the bottom of the instruction documents. Okay, so if you are using this online version, you'll end up hitting share like I am here. You will type in my email address. Okay, so you'll type that in. Do not push send, please, because it's just going to send me an email, and I'm going to end up getting another email later when I try to access it. And I get so many emails, so don't push send, but then just go ahead and copy the link. And this is what you'll end up hyperlinking into the document where you house all of your, or your 2 links for this week. So once you have this link copied, you can add it as a hyperlink to the words OneNote notebook in your MTA4 document. And I'll just show you. So when I end up clicking on that link after you submit your work, this is kind of what it'll show me. So it'll say, you've received a secure link to whoever's notebook, right? So yeah, that's what it'll look like. So if you do test it in an incognito window, that is hopefully what you'll see. And if you see that, you're good to go. Okay, so let's go back to the instructions document. So now we're going to go to the Google tool options. You actually have kind of 3 options because I couldn't really decide between 2 of them. So your options are either doing Google Drawing or the Maps one, which is My Maps or Tour Builder. So for that second one, you're going to either choose My Maps or Tour Builder, and there's different instructions for each of those in there. So let's start with Google Drawing. This is one of my absolute favorites from Google, and I actually made these instructions, these MTA number 4 instructions with each of these cards in here in Google Drawing. So as you can see on the drawing card, it indicates that you're going to use a drawing to create and share an infographic, diagram, manipulative, or some sort of design of your choice. So I've provided an example of the infographic, diagram, and manipulative, and I'm just going to show you those really quickly. So this is just an infographic that I made a few years ago, actually, for a Google Docs add-on that I created. So you'll notice that, some of the text here goes off the page, and for me that was pretty intentional because I wanted it to look a certain way when I printed it. So I'll show you what I mean. So I want it to kind of look like it was running off the page a little bit. So there's obviously a lot you can do here. You can add images and text and all sorts of stuff, different shapes. So that's just one option that you could do, and yours will hopefully and probably look a lot different than mine. The next one is the diagram, and this is just a simple diagram of a flower that someone made and labeled. So you could do a diagram. And the last one is a manipulative, and this is one that I actually made for some 8th graders last year. And you'll notice on the left side of the document over here, I put the instructions off of the canvas, and I intentionally left those off the canvas because I knew students were accessing the activity digitally, so it wasn't something that was going to be printed, and I didn't really want to waste the canvas space. So additionally, I have all of the images that students would need on the right side of the page, and they can drag and drop them into the appropriate place on the canvas according to the assignment instructions. So if you decide to use drawing, basically you'll use the instructions, you'll create a new drawing and kind of do whatever you want. The requirements that I have here for whatever you're making are pretty limited, and that's because I want you to be creative. However, I suggest doing more than just the bare minimum that I've listed here. So you'll obtain a shareable link like you did with all the other Google-based tools last week. And if you need a refresher, you can just use the instructions that are listed at the end of this drawing instructions document. So like last week and this week with all the other links that you get, I suggest testing this in an incognito window. Okay, so last but not least, we have My Maps in Tour Builder. And for this option, you're going to either create a map with My Maps or a tour with Tour Builder that tells the story of significant locations in your life. So I have a tutorial and example for both My Maps and Tour Builder in the option card, as well as in the instructions. So we're going to look at My Maps first. So both of the assignment instructions are pretty similar. However, there are some different features within each of the tools, so the actual requirements are slightly different. So for My Maps, you're going to create a map that has, at least one layer and 7 markers that will indicate your significant locations. You're going to have a description for each marker, an image for each marker, and at least 3 different marker icons. So additionally, you should organize your locations sequentially and draw a line on the map to indicate how your story should flow, and change the color of the line to something different than black. So the tutorial is going to walk you through the majority of those things, but the only thing that I specifically want to address is what I mean by sequential order. So I'm going to look at the example right now. And basically, if you decide to use My Maps and you're making your map, I want the order over here to be the order in which you want your kind of story of significant locations to flow. So if I wanted to first talk about the Paul Revere house, that would be first, and my last one would be whatever is the last one on this tour, so of the Boston Celtics. So that's kind of what I mean by sequential order. Additionally, when you make your line, I want your line to go from, we're just going to pretend right here that this is the Paul Revere house. So I want it to go from the Paul Revere house to the Boston Tea Party to the Old South meeting house, etc., etc. So that way, there's also that line that's indicating the flow as well. Okay, so sharing, the other thing I want to show you on this is sharing, because it's a little bit different than in normal Google things. So let me, I'll just create one so you can see it. really quick. So when you go to share your My Map, sharing is here, right between add layer and preview. And well, you'll have to have a title. But basically you'll just change it here and then to anyone with the link can view and hit save. And then you'll go through the process of obtaining the link, you're copying it, and then you're hyperlinking it into your document to the words Google My Maps and testing it in an incognito window just to make sure it works. So that the rest of it is just the same as everything else. So if you decide to use Tour Builder instead of My Maps, you'll follow the instructions to get it set up and add in all the required components. Tour Builder essentially creates an order and uses a line, or already populates a line to connect all of your points for you. So in that way, it's kind of a little easier than My Maps. So I suggest using the tutorial to give yourself an overview of where all the tools are. And of sharing an obtainable link with Tour Builder is also a little different. So let me show you that really quick too. All right, let's just do this one. This was kind of just a test one that I started making. But basically, well, I'm gonna go back into editing mode because we'll pretend that we've now just finished creating our tour. What you need to do is you first hit done editing here and then you hit share. So then everything else is the same like you normally would. You change this to anyone who has the link and you're good to go. So that's a little bit different. And again, I suggest testing that link in an incognito window. So when you're done with your 2 chosen activities for MTA4 and you've tested all the links in an incognito window, you're gonna submit the document that houses your 2 links into the Brightspace Dropbox for MTA4 using the naming conventions that you see here. So last name _ MTA4. So hopefully this process isn't as overwhelming as it might have been last week. However, remember that you can always come back to this video if you need to. And you have just a few things left to do this week. So you have a week 5 discussion board post that's due Wednesday by 11:59 p.m. Discussion board responses are due Sunday by 11:59 p.m. and MTA number 4 is due Sunday by 11:59 p.m. So if you have any questions or need any assistance, please feel free to get in touch with me. I think that's all for now. Happy working this week and let me know if you need anything.